Avi Lipkin, for those of you that don't know him yet, you're going to be thrilled in this next 30 minutes. But Avi Lipkin served in the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF. He was an IDF spokesperson for the Judea and Samaria Command under Lieutenant Colonel Raphael Horovitz. And his reserve duties include artillery reserves, and then he was an officer in the IDF. He's worked in the spokesman's office for over 12 years, IDF spokesman's office. He worked as a senior editor and translator in the news department of the government press office under Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir. In 1990, Avi began lecturing in Christian churches and synagogues in the United States, as well as appearing on radio and television. He's appeared in over 1,000 churches and synagogues in the U.S. and Canada, Mexico, U.K., Norway, Finland, Holland, Belgium, Switzerland, Greece, all over Israel. He's appeared on hundreds of radio and TV shows worldwide. And he's married to his precious wife, Rachel Lipkin, who is an Egyptian-born Jewess who migrated to Israel in 1969. And here's what's interesting. She worked for the Israeli radio service in Arabic for the last 25 years, monitoring Arabic language broadcast on radio and TV as well as newspapers. And Avi and I became good friends because back during the election, the 2008 election and just before, he and his wife were picking up all kinds of intelligence coming out of the Middle East that America was getting ready to have a, quote, Muslim president. Saudi Arabia was kind of behind or interested in this. They began sharing that information with the world. Avi's wife, Rachel, who first heard and interpreted those transmissions coming out of the Middle East, didn't have a clue who they were talking about. She'd never heard of this Barack Obama before. But sure enough, 2008, this man was elected, and now these many years later, we know his deep, deep, deep ties to the Middle East and to Islam. And look at the mess we're in now, Avi. It looks like, and then I made a video about that, and it went viral. So, Avi, welcome to the show. It looks like what you and Rachel said years ago, you were castigated for it. I was castigated for making the video. You and I were lied about. We were trashed. We were made fun of. But here we are these years later, and sadly, we've been vindicated, have we not?
Not only vindicated, wait till we finish this show.
Yeah, I know. Well, tell us the latest, greatest. What's going on? He's headed to Israel, huh?
Well, he's headed to Israel, and as I have said before, Obama has 3 orders. He has to follow orders from Saudi. The 3 orders are, number 1, destroy the Shiite regime of Iran. Yep. Number 2, destroy Israel. And number 3, destroy Christian America. In other words, make America a Muslim country.
Right.
And what he's going to do in March when he goes to Israel, of course, he's going to try to force Israel to recognize a Palestinian state, which, of course, I don't think can ever really happen. And then he's going to say, okay, well, we'll put that aside for now. And then he's going to say, give Israel the green light to attack Iran. And, Israel will attack Iran, and then you're going to have tens of thousands of missiles and rockets falling on Israel. And then when Israel defends itself, uses up all the bullets that Mr. Obama has given them. Obama's given Israel $800 million of war material in addition to the $400 million that Clinton gave Israel, so that's $1.2 billion of bullets. So basically, instead of 3 weeks of bullets, we got about 6 weeks of bullets. When we're out of bullets after 6 weeks, the Muslims have bullets for 6 years, then President Obama will say, okay, now you recognize the Palestinian state. What I do see happening is the Iranians will block the Straits of Hormuz, Israel will be blamed, NATO will come in, the Iranian regime will be overthrown. By the way, the Iranian people are good people. They don't like that crazy regime that they have. And President Obama will be the Messiah because President Obama will get rid of that crazy Shiite regime. Syria, which is backed by the Shiites, will fall to the Sunnis, which is really not that good news. Hezbollah will be destroyed. So Obama gets the credit. Then, after Israel has used up all its weapons, everybody's going to come against Israel and say, now you're between a rock and a hard place. You better recognize the Palestinian state. You better go back to the borders of June the 5th, 1967, which are suicide borders. Yeah. In other words, Obama wants Israel to commit suicide. Meanwhile, on the home front here in America, what you're going to have is you're going to have 50 million Muslims coming here because you know what's going to happen. When they get rid of their Christians in Egypt, you're going to have 76 million starving Muslim Egyptians because the Egyptians, the Christians are the backbone of the Egyptian economy.
Right.
You get rid of the Christians, you get rid of the economy.
Right.
When you get rid of the economy, people starve. When they starve, they leave. Where do they go? America.
Right. And you know, Avi, you said this on this program, and of course all over the world, but you said this a couple of years ago that this agenda was going to drive basically 30, 40, 50 million Muslim refugees into America, kind of like we saw in the Vietnam War with the Vietnamese, right? And you say that is on its way. It's going to happen.
And you know what? Economically, it's going to be great for America because the Saudis are going to be pumping in all this money for housing starts. You know, the American economy rises or falls depending on housing starts. When you have a lot of construction going on, a construction boom, that radiates to all sectors of the American economy. And you know what? You know, I want to tell you something. I love the Christians. But, you know, you've got these Christians, these libertarians, and these others who say, oh, the dollar is going to collapse. The American economy is going to collapse. And I disagree with that. I think that the Saudis, and the communist Chinese, by the way, have the American debt wrapped around their necks like an anchor. And the Muslims and the Chinese have too much to lose to allow the American economy to collapse. And so I think that with all this Islamic immigration coming in, the Saudis will pay for everything. Do you think that the $16 trillion debt's a big deal? It's not a big deal. For the Saudis, they got the money. The only thing is, you know, they'll give you the money. All you have to do really is denounce Christ, become Muslims, make America a Muslim country, which is Obama's job, and the Saudis will bankroll it.
Yeah, we'll just have to pay dimitude.
Right.
Yeah, which is the Muslim principle of paying for Muslim protection. It's kind of like a Muslim mafia payment.
Yes, in other words, Jews and Christians and Hindus and Buddhists who live in America will become slaves to the Islamic system.
Right. And that's the goal. Now, you mentioned a few moments ago that Obama would then be seen as the Messiah. Now, what you meant by that, of course, probably, and if I'm wrong, tell me, but I think what you meant, of course, was he would be seen as the Islamic Messiah. You said that kind of tongue-in-cheek, but do you think that he might actually be seen as the Mahdi, the expected coming one?
Well, I don't know about Mahdi, but, you know, Newsweek and Time gave him the role of the second coming. And
I know. I remember that. That was in 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, the Sunnis and the Shiites both are looking for the Mahdi to come, and they believe he's just on the brink. He's just on the horizon. And if this scenario unfolds like you said, I mean, Obama could very well be hailed as that Islamic Christ that is to come.
Not only the Islamic Christ, the universal Christ.
Are you saying that Barack Obama could be declared the Antichrist?
Well, you know what? I don't say the Antichrist. I'm saying if Time and Newsweek love him, if the media won't ask him one hard question,
right?
He's the darling of the media. He's the darling of the Democrats. He's the darling of all these people coming into the country who are being funded by the Saudis and those who don't work and those who get the food stamps.
Right.
That, you know, like, you know. You know what? I think Jesus said that either you serve the Lord or you serve Mammon.
That's right.
You cannot serve both. So if you're serving the Islamic Mammon, you're not serving the Lord, on the contrary.
Yeah, very well spoken. Well, let me ask you this. Just a little while ago, we had Dr. Grace on with us, and she's a regular correspondent to our show out of Washington, D.C. and Boston, Massachusetts, and she's the executive director of the Edinburgh Institute for American Renewal. And we were talking about Chuck Hagel's appointment as Department of Defense Secretary. Tell me, what's your opinion about his possible appointment, and it looks like it's going to be, as Secretary of Defense? And also, talk to me about John Brennan being made CIA director. He is a converted Muslim, and his conversion was under the auspices of an espionage, basically, attack upon him.
You know what? I look at all of these appointments, and I'm not just talking about Brennan or even Kerry or even Hagel. Every Monday and every Thursday, you hear about some new, very, very senior appointment going over to a Muslim.
Yeah.
A Muslim Brotherhood. And you know what? It's like, you ever hear of the poison arsenic? If you swallow an arsenic pill, you're not going to die. Arsenic is something which is given to you incrementally, and it is increased and over a period of time, and then the arsenic kills you. America started with one or two Muslims here and one or two Muslims there, and little by little, he's filling up senior positions and all different cabinet positions.
Yep.
And they're becoming Muslims.
Yep. Go ahead.
And so Hagel is just one more example. I mean, he's not a Muslim, but he seems to be such a horrid ignoramus.
Yeah.
that at the confirming meeting there in Washington, he didn't know anything about anything. He said, well, I'll learn on the job.
I know. Nothing about, I mean, I am more qualified to be defense secretary than Chuck Hagel is at this point.
I have no doubt. Any Christian who knows the Bible would be better.
Well, I mean, I do. I know the Bible. I know the Middle East. I know, I understand Islam. I mean, I know more about Sunni, Shia, Mahdi, all of this than Chuck Hagel does, I guarantee you. John Brennan he converted when he was representing the United States in the Middle East, and he converted to Islam after they basically ran an what am I trying? It's not espionage. What's the word? They ran a counterintelligence kind of operation against him to get him to convert, and he did.
Yeah.
And now he's going to be head of the CIA with all of America's secrets in his hand.
You know, I'll tell you, I'm a little concerned, indeed, about. When you send a tough message to the world, they respect you, and then you have peace.
Right.
When you send a message, come and kick me in the butt,
right,
then the people who can kick you in the butt, the Russians, the Chinese, the North Koreans, Iran, all these, they can come kick you in the butt. So I don't know what this president really is thinking to do, but the point is Hagel is absolutely the worst possible, not only anti-Israel and anti-Jewish, he's a bad choice for American Secretary of Defense.
Yeah, he's just stupid. And John Brennan is the worst choice. And look, Michelle Bachmann and 5 other congressmen sitting on a defense committee, intelligence committee, wrote a letter, and I'm sure you're aware of this, to the president and the administration saying, hey, what's going on with all the Muslim Brotherhood in the White House? And they were roundly had their hands slapped, their faces slapped in public by so-called conservative congressmen. One of the leaders was this darling of the conservative movement. What's his name? It slipped my mind now. From Cuba, his parents from Cuba.
Marco Rubio.
Marco Rubio was the first one to trash Michelle Bachmann publicly for doing her job. You know, Avi, it's like we've gone down the rabbit hole. It's surreal. I mean, people are just in love with Marco Rubio, saying, oh, he's the next Republican nominee. I wouldn't vote for him for dog catcher. He's like a Chuck Hagel or a John Brennan, but people don't see it. They get mad at me for saying that.
Well, listen, all I can say is the following. You know, in his inaugural address 4 years ago when he first got elected, Obama said, America today is a Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu country. In other words, Jews are no longer number 2.
Right.
Jews are now number 3. The Muslims are about 30 million in America. The Jews are about 5 million. And he's right. And I think it was Obama said that America is the greatest Muslim country on earth.
Yeah.
And now, if the Muslims are 30 million and the population of America is 300 million or 307 million, the Muslims are 10%. Therefore, you should have 10% of the people in all your government administration offices being Muslims. So, and I predict they're going to have another 30, 40 million Muslims in the next 4 years coming in, and they're going to use Agenda 21 to confiscate lands in order to house these millions of people coming in from the countries where the Muslim Brotherhood took over, because the Muslim Brotherhood is a mentally retarded system that is a failure economically, and what's going to happen is they're going to get ethnically cleanse and kill their Christians, and then there won't be any economy left in Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, or Iraq. You're going to see 30, 40, 50 million Muslims coming to live here because they're going to be starving where they are.
Yeah, but when they start taking people's property to put, listen, there's a coming revolutionary war. There's a coming civil war, and the Department of Homeland Security is already gearing up for it. That's why they've ordered all these targets of pregnant white women and white farmers with shotguns and white little boys and white little girls on the playground with guns and white housewives. And the Department of Homeland Security, they've ordered 2 billion bullets, enough to fight a 33-year war with at the intensity of the Gulf War. I've done all the math on it. In the first 15 minutes of my program, I put all the math out there. The Department of Homeland Security is gearing up for a war, it looks like, against white America, and I think a lot of it ties in to what you're saying. I think there is an agenda afoot. I think it's on its way, but I think one thing that they are miscalculating is that America, there are millions, tens of millions of people like me